this start. Let's get this started. Uh, Zoom was telling me crazy things just now when I started to come on. So I'm glad that we're here, and I'm glad that you're coming into the room, because for a minute I was a little panicked because I wasn't seeing what I was used to seeing on Zoom. This is how technology is, right? Just when we think we have it figured out, it throws us a loop. Well, welcome. People are streaming into the room. You are pouring through the doors. Find a seat, settle in, get your beverage. And as many of you know, I always ask, do you have something in your glass? And if you do, type it in chat. If you don't, just type in chat that you're here with me today. And I always love to know if this is your first time on one of our happy hours. So Katie already had a question, and that is, will this be recorded so we can reference it later? It is being streamed live on Facebook, and that recording will be on the Hyannis Country Garden Facebook page. We may get it up on the recordings on our own website at some point as well, but you can go to the Hyannis Country Garden Facebook page and scroll down and you will see it there, and you will be able to watch it again. So everybody, oh good, you've got all kinds of interesting things. I've got a one of those grapefruit sparkling waters tonight. Kind of boring, but there you go. It satisfies my thirst, and that is what is important right now. As I always say, it doesn't matter what is in our glasses or cups or mugs. What matters is that we're taking a breath, sitting down, and focusing on something as life-affirming as plants and gardens. And boy, do we have a lot of things to talk about today. So for those of you who have not been with me before, how this works is that I have a presentation ready for you about the topic at hand. And then after we get through that, I will take as many of your questions as possible, and you write them into chat, just like people are writing in chat right now, and they're greeting each other. I love it when you know each other and you talk in chat. That's great. Hibiscus ginger hard cider. Margot, that sounds very interesting. So it's and green tea, that sounds good. Actually, I should have had a hot beverage tonight because it's cold out, isn't it? It is Cape Cod April, and this is what April is on Cape Cod. We have that occasional day like yesterday that's 50 degrees and sunny and lovely, and then cloudy, windy, wet, damp, chilly. Cloudy, windy, wet, damp, chilly, right? As many of you know, when I first moved to the Cape, I was told that on Cape Cod, we have January, February, March, June. So here we are in our second month of March. And I have to say, sometimes that second month of March is worse than the first month of March. So Michelle is joining from San Francisco, one of my favorite cities in the world. So enjoy. And I'm so glad that you are all with us tonight. All right, so you clearly all know how to use chat, and I just have to, wait a minute, panelists can talk with everyone and attendees can talk with everyone, so everyone can talk with everyone. I've got that all set up. So we're going to get right into the presentation, and then we will come back and I will answer your plant and garden questions, no matter what they are. I'm just making sure my phone is on silent. Oh, and speaking of phones, if I'm showing something that you want to remember, you can take a picture with your cell phone or take a screenshot. All right, so that's always good, in addition to being able to go back on Facebook. Now, for those of you who are watching on Facebook Live, you can put your comments in the comment section. I won't answer those questions until after this is done, because going back and forth between Zoom and my slide presentation and Facebook, it's more than one human can manage. So here we go. Let's get right to sharing my screen, and one panelist can share at a time. Oh, that's right. Okay. And I've got share my screen. I've got play slideshow, and we are off and running with a spring celebration. We've already got 100 people in the room. So welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're with me. Oh, right. There's so much to talk about in the spring, isn't there? And there's so much to do. We all, we get excited about everything that's going on. And everywhere we look in the yards and gardens, there's something to do. But then there's also the distraction of the new plants and what we need to accomplish in our landscape. And we're going to go over some of it. Here's what we're talking about tonight in general. In addition to your questions, we're talking about some great plants. We're talking about spring planting and garden maintenance, predominantly perennials, but a lot of this applies to all gardens. We're going to talk about our hydrangeas, right? Because we on the Cape, we love our hydrangeas. And then we will have Q&A until 6 o'clock. And if there are questions that I don't get to, I am happy to answer them in the coming week on the Hyannis Country Garden blog. Don't click on raise your hand because I don't answer raised hands during this. Again, it's just there are too many things. So it is spring, and everywhere we go, things are suddenly popping, right? It was like 2 weeks ago, suddenly the daffodils, you could watch them grow. Now everywhere I go, I drive around the Cape, I see magnolias in bloom. So things are happening, and the plants know it's spring, even sometimes when our weather says it's not. At Country Garden, we are not only celebrating spring, we are celebrating 60 years in business. And Lex put together this amazing timeline display with photographs, so beautifully done. So come in and take a look at it because it's really lovely and kind of designed on the feeling of the old fruit stand, which Country Garden was when it was started 60 years ago. It was a fruit and vegetable stand that also sold plants. And so we've kind of gone back to our roots because, as we like to say in this anniversary year, Country Garden is rooted on Cape Cod. So what have we got? You walk into that room, and after you go past that display, you see flats of plants. You see things like parsley. You see thyme. You see lettuce seedlings, right? You see leeks and onions. You see collard greens and broccoli and Brussels sprouts. You see beautiful strawberry plants. And all of those can go outside right now. This is a trough that I decided this year I am planting with Tuscan kale. And I also stuck some lettuce plants in there for instant gratification. I planted these earlier in the week, actually before we had those 28-degree nights that we had last night and the night before. And they are just fine. In fact, every day they look a little bit better, and they will look better and better once it starts raining as well over the weekend. So those plants can go outside right now. But we have, and Tuscan kale, by the way, is one of my favorites. If you like kale, this is the one to grow because it grows all summer long, gets taller and taller. And what you do is you harvest the lower leaves, right, as the summer goes on, and it just keeps growing up and up and up. And I usually harvest my Tuscan kale well into January, right, by picking the older leaves as I need them and then letting the top grow. And you will have kale for the entire summer, fall, and much of the winter. So this is an amazing plant, amazing plant. But in that same front greenhouse, we have plants that it is too early to put outside. We have all kinds of pepper plants in there. So that's kind of fun and looking forward to those, of course. And we have all kinds of little tomato plants in there, but it is too early to put those outside. If you want to purchase them to get a head start, or because you want to be sure and have the variety you want, that's great. But know this, you should pot them up into bigger pots now, 4-inch pots or 6-inch pots right now, and grow them under lights or in a very sunny window in front of the sunniest slider you have maybe. And then you can plant them outside, but only when the nighttime temperatures are reliably above 50 degrees. On Cape Cod, that doesn't usually happen until May. The reason you want to transplant those tomatoes and peppers or anything else that is too early to go outside into pots is that they're in those little tiny cells of the 3-packs and the 6-packs, and that constricts their roots. And if they stay in there too long, then their roots will be so constricted that they will stop growing. And sometimes they are hesitant to get out of that stopping growing. It can sometimes stunt your plants. So if you're purchasing them now so early, you will want to transplant them into good potting soil in 4 or 6-inch pots. Now we say you can put these plants out when the nighttime temperatures are reliably above 50, because that's when the soil temperatures are warm enough. And the soil temperatures tend to follow what the temperature is at night. So right now, our soil temperatures are still pretty cold. And not only that, the nighttime temperatures can be dipping below freezing. So all of those summer plants, we got to wait on. You can, however, put the bulbs in the ground. And so many of them, like these beautiful hyacinths, will come back every year. So we have them already potted. If you didn't get them in the ground in the fall, you can purchase them like this and plant them now and have them in the spring, and then they will keep coming back. Do, however, make sure that you have the soil up a little higher than it is in these pots when you plant them, so that the bulbs are low enough. They don't have to do that when they're forcing the bulbs in such pots like this, but we want those hyacinth bulbs and those daffodil bulbs to be about 3 inches down. They don't have to be deeper than that. In fact, too deep is not good. So, but plant them, so that they are a little bit further down, and you will be happy that you did. Now we have tulips too. Tulips, some of them come back the next year, some of them not so much. So you plant tulips to lift your heart, right? And by the way, if you are putting these in the ground, you might want to spray them with a deer and rabbit repellent. We have several in the store. So get some spray on them before you go to bed that night, because the deer and the bunnies do love their tulips, don't they? Let's talk a little bit about the perennial garden. This is my garden at this time of year, and you can see I've got some the narcissus, the daffodils in bloom. The trees are starting to bud out. The hackone grass, this is Haconocloa macra. What a mouthful, right? I always say that Haconocloa sounds like you're offing up a hairball. Haconocloa macra, the common name, Japanese forest grass, and this variety is aureola. Aureola is a variety that is yellow, and it starts out a very bright yellow at this time of year, and then it turns to a butter yellow a little bit later in the summer. It is colorful in the perennial garden from right now into October and very hard frost. So good plant for adding color. It's a very low grass. We don't have it quite in yet at Country Garden, but it will be in most likely in May. So put that on your list if you want some color. And by the way, that hackone grass makes an excellent companion to the blue hydrangeas. And the hackone grass does very well in part shade. This is a good time to improve your soil from the top down. What am I talking about? Well, here is my perennial garden. I just took this picture tonight, and I want to point out a couple of things to you. First of all, I want to point out that it's not completely packed with plants right here in this garden. And the reason is I do plant a fair number of annuals in this particular garden every year. The goal with a perennial garden is to have it pretty filled with plants, all right? The goal is not to have a lot of empty soil in between your perennials. And the reason is Mother Nature does not like empty soil. And you know what she's going to do? She's going to plant something there. And it's probably going to be something that you don't want. And we're going to talk about a few of those in a minute. The other thing that happens when you have that bare soil, and I don't mulch all of this garden, and the reason I don't mulch it most of the time is because I grow annual poppies in here, and you can't cover up those annual poppy seeds if you want them in your garden. There is some mulch in the front of this garden, and I usually put a little bit of that on to dress the front up during the Cape Cod Hydrangea Festival when my garden is open to the public. So when you come, you'll have some insider information. You'll know that this whole garden is not mulched because of the poppies, and but you'll know that I put a little there to dress it up. But here's the point here that I want to point out to you. Look at this moss over here. See that moss that's over here? See this moss that's going here? See there's moss starting here, and there's some weeds coming here. All of that is happening. The weeds are happening because there's no mulch there. There's no moss under here. It's not just that the mulch is covering it up. There's no moss under there. And the weeds, most of them can't get through there. The moss happens when the soil is bare year after year. This is a garden that is desperately in need of a layer of compost, and I'm going to do that very soon. All right. I need to top dress this garden, all this bare soil. Once those poppies are up, I need to top dress this with an inch or so of compost. If you have moss in your perennial garden, it means you need to add organic matter to improve the soil from the top down. That's how nature improves soil. Nature does not improve soil by digging a hole when you plant a plant and mixing some compost or peat moss in there. That's not the way you should be improving your gardens. The way you should be improving your gardens is with an inch or two of compost on the surface of the soil, which goes into the soil from the top down. And that's how nature does it. Right now, you can use your own homemade compost, complete with the bits of eggshell that never break down or don't break down over a number of years, and all the worms that are in there as well. You can purchase compost. I'm quite fond of the Coast of Maine compost blend with lobster and crab, only the best for Cape Cod gardens. Or you can use something like the Coast of Maine composted manure blend, and that is good as well. Or you can purchase bulk compost from us. If you need a lot of it, we sell it by the yard and deliver it, so you can do it that way as well. All you need is about an inch or two in between the plants and a scattering on top of the clumps. So on top of those clumps of daylilies, I'll just sift a little bit of compost so that that area gets amended as well. And in between the plants, I'm going to put down 2 inches of compost. At the same time, you're going to be on the lookout for the winter weeds. And this is the most common. This one is bittercress. And by the way, it is edible. You have to wash it a lot to get the soil and grit out of it. But it tastes like watercress. I find it quite delicious. But you want to pull this up. And you want to pull it up because it's starting to bloom right now. I took this picture tonight, all right? The bittercress is starting to bloom, and after the bloom, what comes? Seeds, right? And then the seeds go in the soil, and then you've got 100 times more bittercress next year. So pull these guys up right now, this weekend if you can. Watch for jewelweed if it's not in the right spot. Jewelweed is a native weed. It's actually a weed that supports pollinators, and it's kind of pretty. So when you have it in the right place, leave it be. But I have it throughout my entire perennial bed. There are places in my property where I absolutely value the jewelweed and I leave it. And then there are other places like in my perennial bed that I will pull it out. So watch for this one because this has germinated now. This is a great time to add plants to the garden. Now, this is not, of course, how my garden looks right now. This is a June garden, isn't it? But for your garden to look full of plants in June and July and August and September, add some plants now. And you have such a great choice of plants. And I'm going to highlight just a few of them, but you have so many plants to choose from. First of all is creeping phlox. And I want to give you a little insider information about this plant. The only time you will find this plant in the garden centers, including Hyannis Country Garden, is right now in the spring, okay? Because it is a spring blooming plant. So later on, it's not that saleable in total honesty. So nobody grows it. The growers don't grow it, and so we can't get it later in the summer. So if you want creeping phlox, purchase it now. And this was a picture I took of what we've got on the shelves today, and this is only part of it. We've got purple, we've got white, we've got pink, and this is the time to do it. And if you plant them now, you will, in a couple of years, have this at this time of year. So you will have that color. This is one of the best ground covers for sunny slopes and dry slopes. This is not a plant to put where irrigation is going to be hitting it every other day. All right, that's the kiss of death for this plant. But for those sloped areas that you don't have automatic irrigation, this is a great plant because it's pretty weed smothering as well. Talk about weed smothering, lady's mantle. Lady's mantle is actually a good self-seeding ground cover for shady areas. And so if you've got a part shade to shady garden, lady's mantle is a good plant. And look at how the drops of rain are held on those plants like diamonds displayed on green velvet in Tiffany's. It's one of the things I love the most about lady's mantle. Well, one of the things, because I also love how it looks in the garden, right? When you put it in the garden and you have that lime green color at the time of year when the oriental poppies are flowering and the peonies are flowering, it is just stunning in your garden. And it's also stunning in bouquets with all of the plants that bloom at that time of year in June, with peonies and nepeta, the catmint, and all of those beautiful penstemon and all of those beautiful June flowering plants. You put a little of that lime lady's mantle in it, and it makes that bouquet come alive. This is also the only time of year that you can buy the allium. And we have people coming in frequently in June when they see it in flower in other people's gardens and they say, oh, I want that plant with the big round purple flower. It's too late to buy it then. You need to buy it now. Why is it too late to buy it then? Well, this is a very interesting plant because this is a plant that right now that foliage looks pretty good, right? And you're going to put that in your garden. And then pretty soon you will see that little flower coming up. And when that flower starts to come up, the foliage starts to look terrible. And you will probably think, ah, my allium is dying. What is wrong with my allium? Nothing is wrong with your allium. The allium makes its energy for the bulb at this time of year with those leaves, and it's photosynthesizing. Those leaves are the food factories and they're packing in the carbohydrates. And then when it starts to flower, the plant kind of says, well, my leaves are done. I'm flowering now. Let's get rid of the leaves. Don't worry about it, because you will have these, even though the leaves don't look so great. The plant is just fine. So don't worry about that. And you can, by the way, combine it with some foxglove plants. Foxgloves are are not perennials, they are biennials, but usually when they're happy, they self-seed. And right now we have the small plants that will flower this year, and you put them together and you get this, right? You get this. Now, notice a couple of things. We've got the foxglove here, and there are several of them here because at this point in my garden, they self-seed. I don't have to buy plants. I don't have to grow them from seed anymore. I practically have to weed them out of the garden. My husband thinks every little foxglove plant is on wheels, and so he moves them all over the place. Fine, if he wants to do that. But you will eventually get a nice group of foxglove. But here's the other thing I want to show you. See how those alliums are behind the catmint? Partly they're behind the catmint because they look nice that way, right? But partly they're behind the catmint because it hides the fact that the allium foliage is looking terrible at this point. It, almost dead at this point. And so you tuck your alliums behind another perennial, and then it solves that problem. You won't see the foliage, and you will have this gorgeous symphony in purples in June. This is one of my favorite plants. And if you want a weed smothering plant that makes good socks and shoes for around your shrub, then you need this plant. And make note of it. Take a screenshot of the name right now. Use your cell phone to take a picture of it. Write it down on the piece of paper that might be next to you. Geranium macrorhizum. Now, there are many perennial geraniums. This is the one that you want. Macrorhizum is a problem-solving plant. Why do you want macrorhizum? Well, you want it for several reasons. And the reason isn't the flowers. It has these little flowers. That's not why you want this plant. You want this plant because of this. It forms a weed smothering ground cover that the rabbits don't eat and the deer don't eat. You can put it around your narcissus. You can put it around your hydrangeas. You can put it around your shrubs and whatever shrubs and trees you've got. It's also a drought tolerant plant. So one of the best ground cover plants for dry shade. And the foliage looks fantastic. And it looks fantastic in all but maybe January and February. And frankly, nobody looks good in January and February. So go with this plant. This is a great plant. Often, when the leaves fall around this plant in February and March, all the yellow prickly holly leaves that I have, the American hollies buy some of these plants, and the yellow prickly holly leaves fall down. I don't rake them up. I don't blow them out. The geranium macrorhizum just grows up over those holly leaves. So fantastic plant. Our nursery is starting to fill up. This was a picture I took today, and we have moved the native section to the left side of the shed, kind of front and center, so that people can find the native plants that they want. And I want to highlight one to you tonight, and that is Major Wheeler trumpet honeysuckle. This is an example of our native honeysuckle, Lonicera sempervirens. And we love this plant for so many reasons, not just because it's a native. It's pretty fast growing, number one. The hummingbirds adore this plant, number two. Major Wheeler has these beautiful kind of coral colored flowers. I'm a real sucker for the color coral in my garden. And it pretty much flowers most of the summer, right? I can't say that it flowers from the beginning of June to September, but a good 2 months this plant is in flower. So, and it grows well in sun or part shade. Major Wheeler honeysuckle, if you love the hummingbirds and you want a vine that blooms for a long period of time, this is the plant for you. And it flowers on new growth, so if you need to hack it back in the early spring, you can do that, and it will still flower. This is not a native plant, but it's one that attracts great attention, particularly in the garden center right now, and it is a coral bark maple. I planted this tree in when I moved to the Cape in '93 at my property in Osterville. And I actually had at this time of year, when it is the most striking coral color, I had neighbors stop as they were driving by and ask me if I spray painted this plant. Now, I'm not above spray painting a plant, but I did not spray paint this one. This is what it does. Not only does it have this at this time of year, then when it leaves out, the foliage is kind of a lime green, and it's a beautiful lime green for a good month and a half, and then it's a regular light green, the normal maple leaves, and then in the fall you get this, and it holds its fall color for a long time. So a beautiful small tree with many seasons of interest. And of course, it's kind of coral color in the winter as well. So check out coral bark maple if you have a spot for a small tree and it grows well in either full sun or part shade. This plant on my property is in a lot of shade and it does quite well. Now, if you need more privacy, I want you to check out two plants. I want you to check out Cryptomeria and green giant arborvitae. Both of these are evergreens that grow quickly and are beautiful, but unlike Leland cypress, they keep their foliage top to bottom and are really pretty plants. This is a Cryptomeria right here in this garden. This is a green giant arborvitae right here. This picture is a good 4 or 5 or 6 years old. And I happen to know that these plants right now, combined with this one here, completely screen that house because the green giant arborvitae, similar to the Leland cypress, puts on 3 feet a year in all directions, pretty much, when it is established. So getting a privacy screen going with maybe some holly like here and a deciduous tree like back here and another deciduous tree here and Cryptomeria and green giant, then you have colors and textures in the garden. If an insect or a disease comes along that hits any one of those plants, you don't lose your whole screening. So that's the advantage of doing a mixed screening, not a monoculture of all one plant. And in the nursery right now, we've got a good selection of many sizes of Cryptomeria and many sizes of green giant arborvitae. So, and if you add something with yellow foliage into that mix, then you've got color too. This is a threaded golden arborvitae. These get to be about 10 feet tall. So they've got some good height on them and they've got that beautiful yellow color. And so that can also be a good component to your mixed shrub screening. At this time of year, the plants are just streaming into the nursery, right? And so, almost every day a truck rolls in and those plants are getting unloaded off of the pallets and put out in the nursery. So every week, if you come in every week, you will see something new. I promise from now on. And of course, in the front of the garden center, we've got the pansies. Come and check them out. I love all the different violas. My problem is I have trouble choosing. I want them all. But buy some pansies, and you know why? Not only for instant spring cheer, but they are great for pressing. Press them between sheets of printer paper. Don't use wax paper, use printer paper because it absorbs the moisture. So just your regular printing paper, 2 sheets, put the pansies in between. These are pressed and press them. You can press all your other spring flowers too. It can make a fun project to do with kids. And then you can arrange them in a arrangement that suits you and that you like how it looks, and then take a picture. Yeah, you can glue them on cards, gift cards and all of that, but the colors will fade, but the pictures don't fade, right? So take a picture and you can have a picture from your cell phone printed on anything these days. pillows, tote bags, calendars, right? So have fun with it. And pansies, starting with pansies, and you can get in the habit of pressing some of the flowers from your garden. You can even make a pressed flower diary of your garden that will be pretty special keepsake. Now we go away from the sublime to the terrible, to the cry out loud pest of the year last year. This is a new pest. It landed 2 years ago. Last year, it really took off. And we anticipate that this year it's going to be much, much worse in many parts of the Cape. It is box tree moth, and it attacks boxwood. And this is what it does. Now, normally, when people come to me and say, something killed my plant almost overnight, I'm always skeptical and I think, nah, you weren't paying attention. Well, this is a pest that kills the boxwoods almost overnight. Within 3 days, your plants can go from looking great to being dead. I'm talking dead. And they are just terrible. And the reason that they are so fast and can do such damage so quickly is that they are big larvae, big caterpillars, right? So they eat a lot, and they start on the inside so you don't know they're there. So they start on the inside of the plant, you don't realize they're there. And they completely devour the leaves, and as soon as they're done with the leaves, they eat the stems, and that's why it kills the plant. This is how the pupa looks. There are 3 generations. So the moth lays the egg hatches into the caterpillar, the caterpillar eats, and then it pupates, and then it starts all over again. This hatches into the moth. So 2 to 3 generations per year here on Cape Cod. And this is the first damage that I saw when a customer brought it in to me on a Friday at Country Garden. And this was my first alert 2 years ago that we had this problem. And this is what it does to plants. As I say, it completely strips these plants. And if your boxwood absolutely died last year, that's what it was. Now, this is different from blight, and it's different from winter damage. If you have box tree moth, you will see webs. See this? You see those webs? All right. You will see webs. You will see brown leaves, not yellow leaves, brown dead leaves. You will see it happening in large areas, and you will see the plants go very quickly. The blight does not go that quickly. All right. Winter damage. You might see winter damage right now over your whole plant. Your plant might be golden or kind of orangish in color. That's winter damage. That's not box tree moth. And you want to put some plant tone around those plants. But this is the sign of the box tree moth. So what can you do? This is what you need. Captain Jack spinosad. And either get the concentrate like this that you can put in a pump sprayer, or get the hose end sprayer like this, because you want to drench your plants once a month starting at the beginning of May. And I'm talking drench so that you get the spinosad on the leaves that are on the inside of the plant where this pest starts. Now let's get away from the creepy crawly and into something more pleasant. Let's talk hydrangeas. And this is, of course, the plant that we on the Cape are the most fond of. And there's always great hydrangea happiness and hydrangea hysteria about. And a couple nights ago, people were feeling a little hydrangea hysterical because the temperature went down to 28. Don't worry, it didn't hurt them. It didn't hurt them. This is what my hydrangeas look like right now. And they are kind of accelerated at this time of year. Sometimes this size of growth doesn't happen until May. It's happened now. What we want, of course, is those buds to stay alive. Now, if it just dips down to 29, 28 overnight, the edges might get a little dark, right? You might get a little darkening, a little damage on the edge of the leaves, but it doesn't kill that whole bud. Right inside all of these green buds on this plant, you can see they're all over this plant. Right inside is the germ of the flower for next year. So we don't want anything to happen to those buds. So fingers crossed, it will stay as they are growing now. Fingers crossed, the temperatures will not dip down to below 25. So those will be good. Now this was the forecast that I saw on my app today. And you can see these are nighttime temperatures, all perfectly reasonable. So we're not gonna, be in hydrangea danger over the next 10 days. We just have to hope that we don't get that freak polar vortex thing where the air comes down and it goes down into the lower 20s. So, and I say, it doesn't, if that happens, it doesn't help to cover them up. So don't worry about blankets. I always say that prayer works as well as anything else. And that's what I use. Now, let me just say a thing about pruning hydrangeas, because it is the time that you can start doing that. Now that these buds are about the size of a dime and you can clearly see what's living and what's dead, you can start cleaning these hydrangeas up. And what you want to do is very carefully look at that plant, go out there with your hand pruners and look at that plant, and you want to cut off anything dead, but you want to cut above any green bud. So you don't cut off any green bud. So here, for instance, I wouldn't cut this here because when I look up here, I've got a green bud. So I'm going to be cutting that one right here. So you look carefully and branch by branch, carefully cut off anything dead. If you see an entire branch that's dead, by all means, get rid of that. But this is how your plant should look when you are done. Notice something very important about this picture. I did not cut this plant down below the windows. Do not cut your plant down below the windows, all right? Because if you do that, you will have fewer flowers and it will just be above the windows again later on. So this is how my plant looks when it's in bloom, because I don't cut it down below the windows, but I have flowers all on the top of this plant. And why would I want to cut it down? Because I can see those flowers from inside the house, right? So why would I want it below the windows? Because I can see the beautiful hydrangea flowers. This is an example of what happens when somebody tries to make them shorter and cuts them below the windows. They come and they are just as tall by July, but they don't have flowers up here because this is all new growth that happened in response to this plant getting cut down below the windows. Give up on making a hydrangea shorter. If you don't like the fact that it's above the windows, move that plant. Don't cut it down because you will lose. It will be just as tall by July and you will have many fewer flowers. A word about gift hydrangeas. This is what's going on inside our greenhouse right now. We have all kinds of happy Easter plants. It's so much fun. But these hydrangeas are gift hydrangeas, all right? They are a variety that is raised to be a gift hydrangea. They are raised to branch out quickly for the grower and to come into flower in a greenhouse condition. They may or may not make a good landscape plant. Now, sometimes you can plant a gift hydrangea outside and it comes back and it blooms every year and you have no idea what it is, but it's fine, all right? And sometimes it comes back without flowers, or sometimes it doesn't live. And it's also kind of hard to keep that Easter hydrangea alive until the end of May when you put it outside on an inside condition. So just know that. I'm not telling you not to do it, not to plant it outside. I'm telling you that if you want to be sure to put a hydrangea that's going to do well in your Cape Cod garden, you want to buy one in our hydrangea section later on in May that is known to be a good landscape plant. Okay, we have 15 minutes for questions. So I am going to stop my share here, although you can make note of my email if you want to take a screenshot. If you have questions that occur to you later on, you can always shoot me an email. That is my address at Country Garden. So let's come back into the greenhouse, and I am going to come back up to the chat, and I'm going to start here, scrolling past what everybody has in their glass, which is always fun. And okay, I have heard many times recently not to plant butterfly bush. What are your thoughts? My thoughts are we have to remember that not all plants are invasive everywhere, all right? And when we read online, people online are getting their information from all over, all right? And it's very important to get your information locally. Butterfly bush are not really known for being invasive on Cape Cod. Do they occasionally self-seed? Yes. Are they being considered as an invasive plant or under consideration? No, they are not under consideration right now. I'll tell you what is under consideration: the ornamental grasses, miscanthus. That is under consideration as being banned in Boston. It's not banned yet, but it's being considered. So, but there are parts of the country that butterfly bush is an invasive plant. And so when you read, oh, don't plant it, it's invasive, that's somebody who it might be invasive in their area, or they have read it because it's invasive someplace. I'll give you another example of this. Our native pokeweed, native plants are never considered invasive, right? Because they're native plants. They might be aggressive, they might be annoying, but they're not invasive. Well, our native pokeweed, that is a fine pollinator and bird support plant for us, is considered invasive in the West Coast. So go with local information always, and take everything you read online with a grain of salt. Facebook is a dangerous neighborhood. All right. What companion plant book do you recommend last class? I recommended, wait, hold on. I'm going to grab it. Plant Partners by Jessica Walliser. Plant Partners by Jessica Walliser. It is the only companion plant book that I know of that is science-based. Most of them are BS. This one is SB, science-based. All right, so that's a good one. Should tomato seedlings go outside during the day? Only if it's not like today where it's really cold and windy. Only if it's calm and, well above 55 degrees. It's still too early for tomatoes. You can start hardening them off in May, but now it's really, they're going to get stressed. These are plants that like the heat, and it's too cold. Just like I would say, if it's nice enough for you to be out in a t-shirt, then you can put your tomatoes out. But today, not so much. I started snap peas by seed and they are growing, but way too early to put them out. How do I manage them? No, it's not too early to put them out. Put them out. Put them out in part shade during the day for 2 or 3 days and then plant them. Peas can take these cold temperatures, so better to get them outside. And in the future, don't start those inside. Plant the seeds directly in the garden. There are some plants that you should never start inside. Beans, peas, any root crop, of course, squash, those summer plants, put those seeds directly in the garden. Way too cold in my garden to have those in bloom. My bulbs are only 2 inches out of the ground. I'm not sure what you're talking about. I just read we will be seeing cicadas on the Cape at the end of this month, but the article didn't speak of what they eat, only how they repopulate. Okay, they eat roots when they're in the ground. Don't worry about that, it's not a problem. When they're adults, the damage is caused not by eating, the damage is caused by the female sawing into the end of a twig on a tree and laying her eggs in that end of the twig. you really don't have to worry about cicadas unless you have a new small tree or a small fruit tree that you might have planted last year or the year before. Then you might want to net it. Netting is the only response for cicadas. Don't even think about spraying any insecticides. You'll kill all the beneficial bugs and it won't be that effective. So only if you've got a small tree that is of sentimental value or a new plant, then you want to put the netting on, and you want special cicada netting. I think we're getting some in at Country Garden. It might even be in now, so you can call and find out. But everything else, don't worry about your vegetables. Don't worry about your perennials. Don't worry about your lawn. Don't worry even about most shrubs. Don't worry about your hydrangeas. Sit back and enjoy the show. This is something only once every 17 years. It's kind of like a comet going through, right? It is such an amazing thing that nature does. So enjoy it, enjoy it. And don't let your pets eat too many of them. What is the best mulch to use to prevent weeds? Anything organic. Bark, chopped up leaves, pine needles, anything like that. Do not use cardboard. Cardboard has poisons in it. It does not belong in the garden. Do not use landscape fabric. I know we sell at a Country Garden, but it's going to be a problem for you. Use organic mulches. They feed the soil from the top down. In terms of purchased, whatever you like the look of, all right? It doesn't matter. Cedar mulch is just functions just the same as hemlock or pine bark. Mulches do not make soil more acidic. That's an old myth. So use what you like the look of. Is leaf mulch okay to spread in the garden? Leaves are gold for the garden. Absolutely. If you have leaves, I would chop them up, certainly. And you can chop them up with a lawnmower and bag them, and then, use the bag to easily spread them out in your perennial garden. And leaves are also, of course, great for around your shrubs. They are nature's fertilizer, so make use of them. I have a row of PJM rhodies across the front of my yard. Last year, 2 of them had a lot of dead wood, and this spring, another one and 2 are not looking good. Could this be a disease? Old age, at least 20 years. Should I dig out and replace? All right. It's probably the main reason is drought. Okay, that's the main reason. And even if they're under irrigation, most irrigation systems are set to go off too frequently, too shallowly, and they are not deeply watering plants. That's number one. For the past 2 summers, we have had hot, dry weather, and we have had significant dieback on rhododendrons all over the Cape as a result. So number 1 is drought. And number 2, maybe old age. Number 3, also, if they're in the front of your property, if they're in a place where you haven't amended the soil from the top down with compost or leaves or mulch every year, the soil might be kind of wearing out as well. The soil may not be healthy. How nature replenishes soil is the leaves fall down and the twigs and everything, and it rots from the top down, and the earthworms pull it in, and the microorganisms live on that decaying plant matter. And that's what keeps soil healthy, and healthy soil makes healthy plants. So that's what you want to emulate in your property. Now, if you happen to have those PJMs growing in lawn, most of us are not amending lawns. So you might want to put a bed around those PJMs, and you might want to top dress with a layer of compost every year, or an inch of compost followed by an inch of mulch every year, in order to feed the soil from the top down. Now, whether you take them out and replace, that's up to you. The other thing you can try is removing what's dead off of all of them, and then trimming them all down a bit, so they're all, maybe cutting them down by about 1/3, all right? And at the same time, put some holly tone down, compost, bark mulch around there, and this summer, water deeply once a week. I'm talking with a sprinkler that goes back and forth like this, right? Or your irrigation set to go off once every 5 or 6 days for a long time instead of for half an hour every other day. So that's what I would do with those plants. Okay, we've got about 6 more minutes left, so I'll get to as many of these as possible. And if I don't get to your question, I will be saving the chat at the end, and I will answer the questions that I didn't answer here tonight, plus any that are on Facebook, I will answer on the Hyannis Country Garden blog. I write a new blog post for those of you who don't know. Every Monday it gets launched at hyanniscountrygarden.com, and it's always something seasonal. So a lot of good information there, and you can search on it. So if you have a question about something, search there. You might find the answer on the blog. Let's see. Your outdoor patio lavender looks so dead. I see no new growth. Should I put it up and start over? Yes, probably. This was a hard winter for lavender. And now you in San Francisco, I don't know whether it was because of a hard winter or something else, but many people on Cape Cod have dead lavender right now. And if you don't see any growth on your lavender plant in San Francisco, you should see it already because it's spring there, right? Here, for anyone who has a bad looking lavender, I'd wait until maybe the second week of May to make that call. But I see on my property, there are some lavenders that are fine and I can see them regenerating, and I've clipped them back. If you haven't clipped your lavender back, do that at this time of year. You can just, cut maybe 3 or 4 inches off of the top. You don't want to cut too far down into the plant on lavender ever. So you want to clip it back a little bit. But if it still looks dead by the second week of May here on the Cape, it is a goner. And if it for you in San Francisco looks so dead now, probably is. Start over. They're inexpensive lavender plants. And so by all means. Okay, how many phlox do you need to plant to get a good mound in a couple of years? Well, one phlox that you plant like this will grow out in 2 years to be about like this, and in 5 years to be about like this. So if you want to cover a whole area, I would probably space my phlox about 3 feet apart. That's a good spacing, all right? 3 feet apart, center to center would be good. Any suggestions for flowering vines for an arch? Are there evergreen vines that would work for winter? No, not evergreen vine. If the arch is really big and really strong, you might consider a climbing hydrangea because the stems look nice in the winter, but it would have to be a really big and really strong arch because climbing hydrangea is a really heavy plant that can tear down a small arch. So that's number one. I would suggest that you give up on the idea of evergreen, and I would either, if it's a smaller arch, I would either use one of those Major Wheeler honeysuckle that I recommended, or a combination of a climbing rose and honeysuckle is always a nice combination, or a climbing rose and an annual vine like a mandevilla vine is a good combination. But I would, if it's a pretty arch, that alone should be good in the winter, right? You don't need any plants on there in the winter because the arch is a pretty structure in the winter time. So consider that. What soil should I use to pot up tomato seedlings? They started in Coast of Maine Seed Starter. Well, if you need to move them to bigger pots now, I would go with the Coast of Maine potting mix is fine. Or you could even use the Coast of Maine raised bed mix if you want to, and put them in, if you're putting them in your garden later. So I would just use a good quality organic potting soil. Espoma is a pretty good organic potting soil as well. Last year, our Andromeda bush flowered out 100%. This year, it has only 25% of flowers. Drought. I would say it's drought. And the reason is the flower buds are formed the summer before, and it was a dry summer, it was a dry fall, and it was a dry winter. So to have the flower buds for next year, be sure that you are watering that plant deeply once a week through the summer and fall if it doesn't rain. Your glasses rock. Thank you. I got these online from a company called Vint and York. So remember vintage and New York. All right. Vinton York. Okay, I think I am going to answer one more question, but I am saving the chat. So if you have another question, put it in chat real quickly because I will save the chat and I will answer the questions in the Country Garden blog. Look for them on Monday. All right. Should I fertilize my green giants every year? Mine were planted in 2023. I would have the UMass Amherst do a soil test of that area and see if you need to fertilize, because sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. And I'll give you an example from my garden. We sent soil in from my vegetable garden to UMass, and it is really fertile. We don't have to fertilize. With the exception of it's a little low in potassium, so I'm going to be putting alfalfa meal on it. So I'm putting on the very thing that it needs. However, we had the soil tested of our blueberry patch this year, and it showed that the nutrients kind of across the board were down, with the exception of magnesium. A lot of Cape soils are high in magnesium. So I will be getting a fertilizer that has no magnesium in it and putting that on my blueberry area. You don't have to have a soil test done every year, but once every 5, 6 years, it's a good idea. And we here on the Cape need to be conscious of how much fertilizer we are putting down in our yards and gardens, because we are surrounded by waterways and fertilizer can be a pollutant. So we want to be good stewards of the land, and we at Country Garden want to be good stewards of Cape Cod. I'll just kind of end as I began. We are celebrating our 60th anniversary at Hyannis Country Garden. We are firmly rooted on Cape Cod, and we want to grow beautiful Cape Cod gardens, support Cape Cod homeowners and gardeners, and I look forward to helping you with that, both in future happy hours and in educational programs. So I'm going to save the chat. I thank everybody for coming tonight. You have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you at the store. Take care. Bye-bye.